Welcome to C programming tutorial. In this tutorial, I am going to discuss the compilation process that every single C programmer must know. But before going to discuss the compilation process, let's try to understand why do we need a compiler or a compilation process. Let's try to consider a real life example where person A who speaks only English and person A would like to talk to person B who knows only Bengali. So both of them need a translator who can translate their words to communicate. Similarly, a high-level language, that is the source code that human can understand, whereas machine can understand only the low-level language. So a compiler is needed. There are a few steps happen in this compilation process. So I am going to discuss in details all those steps. So we look at that test.c is a source file, source code that human can understand, and pre-processing step, which is the very first step, in which preprocessor tool, a pre-written program that takes the test.c source code as an input and does four things: removes all the comments from the source code, expands macros, expands included files, and deals with conditional compilation. So preprocessor tool does all this and generates an intermediary output file which is test.i. So in the second step, which is compiling, and in this step there is a built-in compiler software which takes test.i, that intermediary output file, as an input and converts this file into an assembly file which has extension .s. So assembly is an English type language that is a very low level language. In this step, is there any syntax error that can be demonstrated, that can be displayed as well through the command line? Compiler generates another intermediary output file which is test.s, and then in the third step, which is assembling, and in which we have another pre-written program, assembler, which translates the assembly code that has been generated in the previous stage, which is a test.s file, into machine code or binary code known as object code. So it translates and generates test.o file. So test.o is in Linux environment or Linux operating system, and test.obj in Windows operating system. And the fourth step is a linking, which does basically two things, in which there is another pre-written program which is linker. It takes object file that is generated in the previous stage as an input and include library files which has an extension .lib. What are library files? So library files contain the definitions of functions in the machine language. That means in test.o file there are definitions in machine language. And why do we need these library files? We need it because in test.o file there are some unknown statements that our operating system does not know. For example, if we use printf function, its header is in include is stdio file, but its its definition or body of the function is not in that file. So our operating system does not understand printf if we do not link the library files into our code. So at this stage, a linker takes test.o in our case as an input and link all the library files into our code and generate the executable, which is test.exe in Windows operating system and test.out in Linux operating system. Our initial input file is test.c and our eventual output file is test.exe, which is the executable file. But in between there are all these 4 steps taken place, and if I can see that every step we have another program, another software or programming tool that can work. That means we are using another programs to write our program. And if we look at this entire pipeline, so output, input, output, then again input, then output, in and out, in and out, in and out. So all these steps are working together. It is a teamwork. If any step is stalled, then it's going to affect the next step. So all these 4 steps are taking place in the background that we can't see, but it is happening. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you all these 4 steps in practice with a simple source code, and then we compile and see all these intermediary files. Thanks for watching. See you in the next lesson.